Let's begin the conversation tonight on the nation's battle in winning. We shall win, actually, I believe so, against the coronavirus. The presidency has described President Muhammadu Buhari's negative test for the coronavirus as a thing of joy. President Buhari's special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, in an interview at the State House, also denies that a report making the rounds that some media houses have been banned from covering the State House. The president's spokesperson also spoke about other issues, including the suspension of Federal Executive Council meeting.
So that calls for rejoicing with him. Anybody that does the test and tests negative, we rejoice with that person. And anybody that does it and tests positive, it's not a death sentence. We also would pray along with the person, give the person our goodwill and best wishes, and they will surely come out of it. The Executive Council was suspended because of the size. You have over 50 people seated in the council chambers whenever the meeting holds, and that is not advisable at a time like this. But if there will be a very important decision to be taken, you can always summon the relevant people, 3, 4, or 5, and hold a small meeting and arrive at a decision. It does not mean that one man is going to be taking all the decisions. Of course, yes, there are executive decisions, but the ones that must pass through consultation and which must have the buy-in of the Federal Executive Council can always be discussed at smaller meetings. What happened is that in the press gallery, you have about 108 journalists in that single hall. And it goes contrary to the spirit of the times. The times dictate that you don't have too many people congregated in one place. Imagine 108 journalists, and if one of them happens to catch the virus, he spreads it among all the journalists. So we said, for now, let them stay away. Not much is happening for now. Let the journalists stay away. But we picked a certain number, representative of the media. They will come in. If there is anything, they will cover. And those outside will also not miss, because there will be a system in which they can share reports.
Mr. Femi Adesina speaking about the health status of his principal and that of the vice president. Both of them tested negative to coronavirus, because there's so much talk about what is happening at the seat of power, who is involved and who is not involved, who is taking the test, especially as we are hearing about governors. And one of those who came in contact with the Bauchi State Governor, one who is said to have tested positive, is his counterpart in Edo State Governor Obaseki, who has decided to embark on self-isolation as a precaution. Beside his colleague in Bauchi State, Governor Obaseki also had close contact with the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, who was tested positive to the virus. A statement by the Governor's aide on media and communication strategy, Kusu Asage, says that Governor has sent his samples for testing. The statement adds that the Mr. Obaseki met with Governor Mohammed at the Nigeria Governors Forum, as well as the National Economic Council meeting, where he also met with Mr. Kyari. Meanwhile, the statement also revealed that the Edo State index case is that of the Speaker of the House of Assembly, who is recovering following treatment at the Irua Specialist Hospital. The case of that of Ekiti State Governor, who is also says that he's in self-isolation, and that of the Nasarawa State Governor, who is also reported that he's in self-isolation. So let's get a sense of what this means for us as a people. Coronavirus has impacted our lives in one way that is difficult to describe in just simple terms. Now, the federal government of Nigeria in some kind of shutdown. The villa is a partial shutdown. That's what Mr. Adesina said today. That is not in total shutdown, but is in partial shutdown. No FEC meeting. Today is Wednesday. You would have seen a Federal Executive Council meeting where most decision about governance is is made. That has been postponed indefinitely. One thing that bothers the mind also is the periodic or the frequent briefing that comes from the Presidential Task Force about the state of things in the handling of the coronavirus. We have not heard from them in 2 days' time. What exactly is happening? Let's make a sense of what this means for our economy. Now that Mr. Atiku Abubakar is asking the federal government to pay each household 10,000 naira, what can that do? How can the federal government do that to help those who he describes as the subsistence Nigerians who live on subsistence basis? My guest tonight, some of them, both of them actually from our Abuja studio tonight, a former member of the National Assembly and a sitting member of the House of Reps. Senator Magnus Abe, former governorship aspirant in Rivers State and a former member of the Senate. He joins us from our Abuja studio, and also Honorable Wale Oke is a member of the PDP and a sitting member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much, gentlemen. What a time, interesting time indeed, and I'm happy that you're maintaining the social distancing gap there in our studio for everyone to keep safe. Let me begin with you, Senator Magnus Abe. For example, we have not heard from the Chief of Staff to the President. We've heard from Mr. Additional that the president and the vice tested negative. There's been talk about how we can manage information, communication at this period, so that there won't be rumors, there won't be fake news. What do you make of the situation, especially for some of the governors who came forward to say, I've tested positive or I've tested negative?
Well, Sean, thank you very much. First of all, I think that the entire emphasis on the status of individuals at this point in time is a distraction. The truth of the matter is that this is a virus. It is not something that is visible. It is something nobody can see. And we're fighting with something that is invisible. So probably what is happening is that at the time we had thought that the virus was not here, the virus was already here and already in circulation while we were now trying to shut the door. So to sit down here and begin to focus on individuals because of the particular position they hold at this point in time, in my humble opinion, will not help the country moving forward. While we sympathize with those who may have tested positive and we rejoice with those who test negative, the fundamental questions that we need to ask are the plans that we're putting in place to take care of a country of over 100 or 200 million people, depending on which of the statistics that you're taking.
Apologies to Button. Sorry, Senator Abe. We practice responsible journalism, but again, you remember or you know very much that those who govern also have responsibility to the people. If we have in some other climes, the Prince Charles in the United Kingdom has come to tell us what has happened to him. He started positive and is getting treatment. The question is that should we allow fake news to fester for those who govern at the highest level? The federal government has also encouraged to say if you test positive, it's not a death sentence. So is it too much or is it out of place to ask or to know if this kind of thing is happening? The same thing the federal government is preaching.
Yes, what I'm saying is that the status of individual Nigerians, regardless of the position they hold, is not the most important issue that bothers this country at this time. For example, the status of the president and the vice president have been disclosed. They tested negative. But you have to understand that even a negative test today is not a guarantee that you cannot test positive tomorrow. And you also have to understand that even if you test positive to the presence of the coronavirus itself, that does not mean that you have developed the disease, which is a product of the virus. So some people would have test positive to the virus, but they may not develop the disease. I think that what is important to Nigerians at this point in time is the efforts the federal government is making or putting in place to ensure that the bulk of the citizens of this country are safe, to ensure that the infection rates do not skyrocket to a point that it will be totally unmanageable. And that is very likely to happen except we all come together as a nation and confront this battle. This is a war. and we confront the battle as one. That's what I think we need to be doing. But because this country were so fixated on politicians, I've been hearing people say, oh, it's politicians that didn't do the hospital, politicians did this, but I don't think that helps the conversation at this time. If we want to have an argument about what is responsible for the health challenges and the economic situation and the governance situation in Nigeria, that is an argument we can have. But will that help the country this evening in the midst of a battle with a virus as destructive and as dangerous and as infectious as this one? My humble answer is no. So let us stick to the things that are important. I saw the statement by the former vice president calling for people to be paid money. That is a very populist statement, and I also thank him for the offer he made in the statement where he said that he's ready to donate, I think, 50 million naira as his own contribution to starting a national fund that will help the effort. That is very commendable. But in practical terms, is it possible at the time that the oil revenues are dropping to almost $28 a barrel, is it possible for us to bring out 10,000 naira to pay to everybody? The answer, in my humble opinion, is that may be very difficult for us to achieve now. So in practical terms, what do we do? What are the things we can do that are practicable? That's the kind of conversation that I think this country should be having, and everybody should contribute to it. So we thank Vice President Atiku for his contribution. Let us also hear from other people. Let us hear from the experts. Let us get practical and workable concepts that we can use to help Nigerians at this time. That's what I think we should be talking about.
Absolutely. Of course, in all of this, there is a lot of hope that also needs to be driven into the hearts of a whole lot of people. And when people who lead at the highest level drive this hope, it changes the scheme of things. The need to know also is very important for those who are being governed. Let me switch to Honorable Wale. Okay. Honorable, okay, what do you make of the situation of things as things aspire to 46, just from February 28th when we first had a first case in Nigeria, and today, the kind of way and manner in which it has been managed? What are your thoughts, Honorable? Okay.
Well, thank you, Sheung. I think Nigerians would now begin to appreciate the National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, proactively. When the news of this virus broke out, the House of Representatives resolved that we should, shut down the Parliament for 2 weeks to allow members to go to their various constituencies and, escalate and educate citizens, our constituents. But who are called names. Who are called names, who are very proactive. From all indication, even if you look at the bill, our Speaker, Honorable Fembe Jabi Amila, sponsored on providing stimulus, to manage the economy, from macro angle. It's an indication that, yes, we are very sensitive and proactive to the welfare of Nigerians. And even when you look at the Constitution, our Constitution has made provision, for this kind of scenario. If you go to Section 305, when you have emergency situation, even though Mr. President is here to declare the current situation we have at hand as a case of an emergency, the Section 305(6) also, gave the Parliament room to also concur with Mr. President so that we can manage this kind of situation that we have at hand. But I think when you look at it holistically, we're not doing badly. Particularly, let me single out the governor of Lagos State. Politics apart, I appreciate the way and manner, he has really worked on daily basis. He comes out to tell Nigerians the state of things in Lagos, more so that the first case that we have, occurred in Lagos, and he's been very proactive. He comes out to brief citizens what is happening and what steps the state government is taking, to combat the problem.
All right, Honorable, okay, we will dig into what former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says. How practicable is that in the scheme of things? But we need to take a break. But we need to know that the WHO is saying that over 400,000 coronavirus cases have been reported globally. The United States has crossed 60,000 with about 827 people dead. We look at the Nigerian situation, how we can go out of this situation and keep safe everyone. Plus, don't forget, tonight on the program, there is crisis in the Kwara State House of Assembly. We dig into that tonight also on the program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. We're looking at coronavirus and how much it has affected our lives in Nigeria, what can be done, and how do we get out of this quagmire. It's affected lives across the world. So, my guest tonight, a panel discussing this, is Senator Magnus Abe, as a former member of the Senate, and Honorable Wale Oke is a sitting member of the House of Representatives, giving us a sense of what this means. We're looking at how coronavirus is affecting governance in Nigeria and what we need to be doing as a people. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of what we know today from what the presidency is saying. That both these men, the Nigerian number 1 and number 2 men, are negative. They tested negative, and the president is saying that the president is saying that they have a clean bill of health. But what we know for now is that the president, chief of staff, Mr. Abba Kyari, has not spoken. The president has not spoken. But we understand that he's tested positive. But mum is a word, because we have not heard anything in regard, officially speaking. Of course, let's know some of the governors also who are in the news about this coronavirus. Also, the governor of Nasarawa also is in the mix. Some of them who are taking tests but are in self-isolation. Governor Fayemi of Ekiti State, the governor of Edo State, some of them who have had contact with those people who tested positive to coronavirus. This man, as a governor of Bauchi State, tested positive yesterday. He came out with the news and said he tested positive in self-isolation, but he said he's in high spirit and has warned that anyone who had contact with him or had contact with anybody who tested positive should come out and get tested. And so let's get a sense of what this means together. As we know today, though there's no information for the Presidential Task Force on Coronavirus, we've not heard from them in 2 days, but what we've heard or what we know today from the NCDC is that Lagos has the highest number of cases, with FCT with 8, Ogun 3, Ekiti 1, Oyo 1, Edo State 1, Bauchi 1, Osun 1. You can see how those states in red are the states with those figures, and you can get a sense of what this means entirely and keeping track of all of these. So in Bauchi, FCT, Edo, Ekiti, Osun, Oyo, Ogun, and Lagos State. So you see how that map looks. For now, that is what we know. So let's look at, for now, the dynamics is the fact that since this all started, let's take a look at how the timeline from February 28th, when we had a first case, to March 9, second case, up until today, when we have 46 cases altogether. That's where we are today on the issue of coronavirus. Atiku Abubakar, let's take a look at what he said earlier, and I'll go to our Abuja studio. And what he's asking for is palliatives for Nigeria. He's asking for 10,000 per household to be able to, for them to be able to cope in this period. Honorable, okay. 10,000 naira per household. Yourself and some of your colleagues have debated on how we need to rejig the budget of Nigeria. Can Nigeria really be able to pay a household 10,000 naira? Is it possible?
I doubt. And I don't also think it's a crime for our leader, the former vice president of Nigeria, to have made such a suggestion. So it's left for us to discuss, to talk about it. Can we afford it? Or assume we can give 10,000 naira to each household, what other steps can we take? We've talked about sanitizers. Can the poor people, Nigerians in the rural areas, afford it? what steps are the local government councils taking? What are the steps the state governments are taking? I mean, we can look at other options, assuming we can meet 10,000 naira per household as palliatives, but it's not a crime. It's, I mean, it has ignited discussion. So I think we should look at it from that angle rather than condemning such an idea.
If Nigeria cannot pay 10,000, what then can we do? If people are asked to stay at home, and this might get worse in the coming days if the case grows the way we have seen it in the last few days, what do you think could be a worst-case scenario for Nigeria, for the government to be able to do for a citizen, to be able to stay afloat?
Like I suggested, there could be other initiatives that we can take. Do we have food silos? Do we have reservations? Do we have good, food stocks preserved? We've had, an experience where you have Boko Haram, and I recall that NEMA did procure some foodstuffs. They even got support from China, and which we investigated, and federal government was able to get food to those states that were in their needs. So we can also look at similar steps. If you don't have, I know that we don't have that kind of money now. Even if you bring all our reserves, and change it to Naira, we don't have that kind of money. I was part of the lawmaker that passed the 2020 Appropriation Act. We don't have that kind of money. But honestly, there are other ways we can support our citizens. For example, the banks. I've read about Alakija, bringing goods worth $1 million to support the government, the citizens. We've heard about GTB, setting up about 100 bed isolation facility in Lagos. So other blue chip outfits, quoted companies can, under their corporate social responsibility window, can also take such steps, VIPs. And I've seen my colleagues, also supporting our constituents by buying sanitizers, branding it and distributing same in our various constituency. I also intend to do that.
Let's hear from Senator Magnus Abe, Honorable. Okay. Senator Magnus Abe, let me bring you back into the conversation now. With what we see on the ground now, so what do you think can be possible? If 10,000, Honorable Oke said, what we have on the ground, 10,000 naira to a household might be an impossibility. We're looking at the federal government, but what about the state government? What do you think is possible? If there's a stay-at-home order and it lasts for several days, how can people survive with a lifestyle and the kind of earnings which is subsistence in nature?
Well, Sean, what I would say is that we cannot adopt wholesale models that may work in other societies where the economic and social infrastructure is totally different from that of our own society. Even if you say you want to pay 10,000 to every citizen now, and you even had the money, do we have the record of those citizens and their particulars? Or do we now have to deploy people to go around the country registering people and spreading the coronavirus in the name of trying to pass 10,000 naira to the citizens? I don't think that would help us practically at this time. The CBN governor, I've heard him announce some palliatives to businesses, and a lot is being done by the government in the area of trying to accommodate the economic shocks that will come out of this. But for us as a country, I think that even if we have resources now, this is a time to manage those resources in a manner that effectively confronts the challenges that we are facing. First of all, let us look at the question of availability of testing facilities, for example, there are a lot of people who are not ill and who, because of their work or their movement, have been exposed to several people. And it would be nice if they could get tested to know if they are positive or they are negative, so that if they're positive, they can withdraw from circulation or adjust what they're doing in one form or the other. Now, where are the testing facilities available in the country? How quickly can we make these facilities available? What is the information that is available to the ordinary Nigerians as to how this can be made to happen? If we had money, I would think that one of the most effective ways to deploy those resources at this time is to make testing widely available across the country, so that people don't have to wait for 1 or 2 days for them to, you have to first contact or be in a position where you're suspected to have contacted the COVID-19 before you can be tested, or your test sample is now sent to another state, and then you have to wait sometimes 48 hours or more to get your results. Across the world, people are now getting results in 45 minutes, some in 15 minutes. This technology is now available. So what I would like to see is a situation where we work with existing companies and laboratories across the country to make this testing available to the ordinary people, even if they have to pay for it. That will help. Secondly, moving beyond that, how do we look at a situation where our existing health facilities could be overwhelmed by an influx of new cases? Because every time, if you look at the progression of these infections from the first case to now, it is not difficult to calculate that the numbers are only going to keep rising until we are able to get this thing completely under control. Now, if the numbers keep rising and people begin to fall ill, how many hospital beds do we have? What efforts are we making to prepare for such an eventuality, which we are not praying for? We're hoping against it. We will do whatever we can to see that it doesn't come to that. But if it comes to a situation where our present health facilities are challenged, our health infrastructure is totally challenged by the infections, what are the measures that we can take? You saw China building a hospital in how many days? You look at all these countries they're setting up. What are we doing about that, and how fast can we get it done? The other thing I would also want us to look at is the question of our medical personnel across the country. How well equipped are they? If, for example, tests were to be easily available, if somebody is coughing and had some symptoms that may look like COVID-19, if you take him to a clinic, the entire staff of a clinic is going to go into infectious disease mode, because they don't know whether this is a person who has contracted the virus or not. Now, because of that, it will be impossible for that person to get proper medical care, even though he may not have COVID-19. But if you had the test facilities easily available, you can easily test the person, determine that this is not an infectious person, and then the person can go through the normal hospital care system. So if all our medical personnel, what is the training we're giving them? How fast can we give them the training? Protective gear, how much of that is available? How quickly can it be made available? These are practical things that will affect the lives of Nigerians moving forward. On the question of staying at home and our own economic model, you also must realize that there are lots of Nigerians who don't have fridges, who don't have light, who don't even have the money to store food for great lengths of time, and they prepare their food, they gather it and prepare it on a day-to-day basis. So if we're going to shut down markets, if we're going to clamp down on transportation, what are the arrangements that we will put in place to make it safe, effective, and reasonable for these people who have to gather their resources day by day to continue to access food and other necessaries within the period of a shutdown? These are all things that we have to calculate as on a Nigerian model. We can't import the British model because our system, our social and economic infrastructure is not the same. So we must be able to develop a Nigerian solution to what is obviously going to be a unique Nigerian problem. Those are the things I think we should be addressing at this time.
Perhaps we should conclude the conversation on this particular topic tonight, because we have yet another issue to tackle tonight. Honorable Walioke, what would be your final thought on the program tonight on the manner in which we need to go urgently? Of course, we've seen the number growing, especially, and it's dominated by those who traveled in the country. And the fear of a lot of people is how this is hurting governance in Nigeria. What are your biggest fears?
Sincerely speaking, I have a very serious fear that we don't have enough infrastructure on ground. Neither do we even have the personnel. We have a lot of citizens who have been to university, nurses, doctors, microbiologists, who have graduated, who are roaming the streets, who are looking for employment that we couldn't absorb, obviously because of financial situation. So God forbid, if the situation goes out beyond what we can handle, we'll be in a very serious danger. And I expect that both the government and the organized private sector should sit up and confront this problem we have at hand, so that collectively we all provide solutions, to it. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble, considering our population.
Honorable Walioke is a member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Senator Magnus Abe, a former governorship aspirant, a former member of the Senate, thank you tonight for your thought. A sincere appreciation for coming tonight. We'll take a break, but when we come back, you remember that Saraki and the PDP were swept off the politics of Kwara State. But there was a lifeline for the PDP and the Saraki political family in Kwara. That lifeline is being threatened. Tonight, we take a look at what it means when we come back from this break, everyone. Join us again.